All right. So I'm Larry Milliken. I'm the manager of scholarly communications at the Drexel University Libraries. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is about adopting open educational resources to improve learning and reduce textbook costs for students. You're going to hear me talk about open educational resources, open textbooks, and OERs at various times. I am using them all as the same thing. There are nuances there, but I'm not going to get into the nuances for this talk. Okay, so the first thing to realize or to consider when you're thinking about open educational resources or the larger problem of reducing textbook costs is kind of the why it's an issue, what we need to do to address it. So as a little background information, the cost of higher education is very high, as we all know, but it is a cost barrier that keeps millions of eligible, college qualified high school students from going to college and completing college. So this number is about 5 years old. The current number would probably be considerably higher, especially during the pandemic. For Drexel University, we have a good sense of what the cost situation is, thanks to the publicly available data. So we have, in terms of all undergraduate students, we have 3,859 Pell Grant students. And so those are people who have incomes low enough that they receive direct grants rather than loans from the federal government. We have another 8,000 students who receive federal student loans, and a total of 13,000 students or so that receive some sort of grant or scholarship aid altogether. And if you can see from the average amount of aid received for federal student loans, people are racking up a significant amount of debt. This is full-time beginning in undergraduate students. And again, this is for the 2018-2019 academic year. It's the most recent data that is publicly available. And so again, you see that 63% of our beginning undergraduate students are receiving student loan aid with an average amount of a little bit more than $10,000 for their first year of college. Over the course of their Drexel career, Drexel borrowers end up owing as much as $72,000 in student loans. And on top of their tuition and room and board payments, student materials are a significant portion or a significant burden for these students. Nationwide, the average budgeting for textbooks and other course materials is around $1,200 to $1,400, and at Drexel, students are told to budget around $1,700. So this is a very significant burden. The textbook and course material money, in particular, often comes out of pocket. All right, so I can tell you about what students think about the cost of textbooks, but it's probably better to hear it from college students. And so I'm going to share a video with you now. These are students from the University of Minnesota.
I think they're really valuable, but the cost is just a little too much for students who are already paying a lot for tuition.
find a way to make costs more manageable because tuition's going up, everything's going up, cost of living's going up, and then textbooks are going up.
There is definitely a value to them, but maybe not for the cost that we pay for them.
I mean, I guess professors are trying to provide students with books that are reasonable, but I mean, there are some textbooks that are just they're just way too pricey.
I just feel like they're really overpriced.
I get frustrated when you have to buy a book that's expensive that you don't use.
Textbooks are only used for so long before you're done with them. So it's like, use it for a couple months and then probably never touch it again.
If people weren't just issuing new editions and just increasing prices, rather stick to what you have.
It is kind of expensive, and sometimes I feel like I have to buy the textbook because it is required.
But it does kind of suck to like throw away so much money on something that you only use for a semester.
They should keep the same textbook for several years because the material doesn't change that much.
I have purchased them and I don't use them, which is kind of frustrating.
I think it's outrageous, actually. Yeah, they cost way too much in general, I think.
I think that
Okay, so with that, that students, when they arrive to campus and they get their textbooks, they have to cope with that cost. They have to figure out how they're going to acquire the materials, and they have coping strategies that they use to kind of get around that as much as they can. So they can purchase the older edition. They can, put off purchasing the textbook until their financial aid check clears. They can skip purchasing it altogether. A lot of students that I've talked to have shared textbooks with other students. So a group of people might pitch in and buy one textbook and share it among 3, 4, 5 people. And then there's the kind of sketchiest option of all of downloading textbooks from the internet, which can put your computer at risk from computer viruses. So what are some of the comments that we've gotten about these coping mechanisms? One of my favorites is, I figured French hadn't changed that much. Purchasing a textbook late on a quarter system really does put students behind. And obviously, if you're going to download a textbook from the internet, there are also legal problems from copyright violations. All right. This is a survey from the Florida State University system with an N of about 20,000 students. They did it once in 2012 and went back again in 2016. So you can see what has changed over time. Vast majority of students cope by not purchasing the required textbook. Some of them are taking fewer courses. They're earning a poorer grade. They're dropping courses, or in some cases, failing a course because they don't have the course materials required to complete it. And you can see that we are getting some change over time in these options, especially in the earned a poor grade and failing a course category. Okay, so what are we going to do what can we do about it? Getting a sense of how textbooks are published is important to figure out a solution. So here's an example of the business model for a typical commercial textbook. So a publisher will decide to publish a textbook. They will contract with an author to write it. Sometimes the author has the idea first, takes it to the publisher, but often it's the publisher reaching out to an author. They create the textbook, and then they make lots of individual sales that then sends that money back to the publisher, who can then pay royalties to the author. And what makes all of that work is the system of copyright that protects the publisher and author and prohibits a book from being shared. And if you think about the royalties that are being paid, typically it's about 5 to 12% of the book purchase price. So if you think about it, how could you get this to happen for free? And so that's where other business models come into play. So here, oops, 1 second. There we go. So here's another model where an external funder comes in and pays for the funding or for the creation of the textbook. And the publisher then finds an author. They produce the textbook and are able to stipulate that it is available for free. The book is still protected by copyright, but then you would need some sort of situation to explain what the author and what the funder want done with that book. All right, so where does the funding come from? There are kind of 4 main groups that pay for the creation of free textbooks or open textbooks or OERs. Universities fund them themselves, either through a direct payment or a grant program or support for a faculty member who creates one. Foundations, including the Gates Foundation, will pay for the creation of certain texts. Some governments have state funding programs, as the state of Pennsylvania is working on. You'll hear a little bit about later. And institutional consortia can get together and produce open textbooks. And the example here of CALI is a consortium for legal information, where law schools across the country contribute to the creation of free open textbooks to be used in legal education. All right. So again, we have this model, and we need to see how we can explain that these books can be given away for free and what can be done with them, what it is that makes them open. And this is where the Creative Commons license comes in. Creative Commons is a nonprofit that creates legal licenses that help people who want to share intellectual property decide how and what they want to share. So copyright is kind of famously associated with the phrase "all rights reserved." With Creative Commons, some rights are reserved, and it's up to the creator to determine what rights you as a user would have. So with a Creative Commons license, you may be given permission to copy the text, share it, edit it, make it your own, to mix it with other materials, to keep it forever. It doesn't expire, or use it. And there are these handy icons that explain to you what is allowed when you see a Creative Commons license. You probably went by it very quickly. There is a Creative Commons CC BY license, which is an attribution license, at the very start of this slideshow. So the most common ones are attribution, which is called CC BY. CCNC is non-commercial, so you're not meant to sell the material when you share it. Share alike means you keep the same license as the original. And non-derivative means you can use it, you can share it, but you can't make something new out of it. And you'll see if you look at a variety of different media options, especially in higher education, you'll see CC licenses, Creative Commons licenses, on the website. This is the Open Courseware Consortium from MIT. They share open courses, college courses that anyone can take and use. And they use a CC BY non-commercial share alike license. Another one you're probably familiar with are TED Talks. TED Talks also come with a Creative Commons license. In this case, it's CC BY, so you have to attribute. It's non-commercial, so you can't sell it, and it's share alike, so you need to keep the same license when you do share it as the original. Actually, go back one slide. In a textbook, as an example, in a textbook, this could mean editing a chapter with your own examples, or adapting a text for a 10-week term like you would at Drexel. All right, so here's an example of an open textbook. This one is coming from a publisher called OpenStax. And these are in every way comparable to any commercial textbook. You can even purchase them in hard copy, and it's available in lots of different web formats. It's also you're able to print it. You can view it over the web. And like a lot of commercial textbooks, this comes with an instructor solution manual and the kind of ancillary materials such as PowerPoint slides that help make adopting a textbook easier for a faculty member. This is a good example of a open textbook that has been adapted for a particular need. So the original open textbook was collaborative statistics, and you see who the authors are, Barbara Ilowski and Susan Dean. There's a group of faculty got together and decided that they wanted one that specifically used Excel. And so they made a new version of the textbook called Collaborative Statistics Using Spreadsheets. They made their new version and have now added to the list of authors, keeping the original authors who were the basis for the original book. And so they each edited each chapter, added their own examples, added their own instructions, and then they wrote 1,000 multiple choice questions to go along and make it easier for faculty to adopt this book. All right, so if you're interested in taking a look at an open textbook, there are several different places to go. One of the easiest ones to use is the Open Textbook Library, which comes from the Center for Open Education, and it's the Open Education Network now from the University of Minnesota. They have this format that is set up like a publisher's catalog. You can browse the search by topic or browse the available open textbooks. They are all CC BY, so you're able to edit them and share them. And they come in a very wide variety of subjects. One of the things that makes the Open Textbook Library a particularly good place to look is that they have faculty members peer review the textbooks that are in the library. Not all of them are peer reviewed at launch, but over time, more reviews are added to the textbooks there. Again, as I said, this is one of many sources. If you are looking for something to adopt for a class, you can reach out to your subject librarian or to me directly, and we'll be happy to help you find through a number of different portals whatever is available for your subject area. So I mentioned that they are peer-reviewed textbooks, and you'll see that there are a range of ratings that is available, and really the reviews are meant to because the reviews are open. You can actually take a look at them And because the book itself is open, look at the book yourself and see if it is a good fit or not for the class that you need to adopt it for. So it really gives you a lot of power to evaluate the books that are available. It's one of the big selling points for the Open Textbook Library. If you're looking to adopt a textbook, I know one of the criteria that you're likely to have is, I know the book is available, but is it going to be good? Is it going to be effective at helping my students learn the materials? And so the University of Georgia set out to do a study with, I think, about almost 22,000 students to examine what the effectiveness of having what the change in effectiveness would be between a non-OER or an OER or an open textbook. So in each category, the percent change of grade goes up in non-Pell eligible students, Pell eligible students, and across all students. And the same for the DFW. So that's drop, fail, withdraw. And so fewer students are dropping or failing or withdrawing from a course if they have OERs. And you'll see the change is most pronounced with the Pell eligible students, the students who are most likely to have difficulty affording a commercial textbook. So what can you do? It depends on what you're looking for. Are you revising a course? Do you want to revise an open textbook? Have you been disappointed in the commercial textbook that you've been using and you want to create your own? We can help you find a solution. We can help you find existing open textbooks. We can help you revise or adapt an open textbook. This is particularly true if you need to adapt it for a 10-week term, or are looking for ancillary materials that you want to add in. And we can help you find the tools to create your own open text. It's very similar to writing any other textbook. There are software tools that are available to make it a little bit easier, and we can help you coordinate that and find a home for your open textbook to live. Now, I mentioned that the state of Pennsylvania has begun funding OER activities. And there is, for the summer of 2021, there is a grant opportunity that is available. The PA Goal grant opportunity is a limited kind of 2-round grant. Most likely we would be looking at grants for the summer round to support open or zero cost courses. And so you can get grants for designing or redesigning a course to replace a commercial textbook with an OER or a zero cost textbook alternative. And that could be something like existing library licensed materials. You can get a grant to create or revise an OER. That's a significant revision to qualify, or to create your own. And there's a grant option for acquiring licensed library materials that would replace commercial textbooks. So there might be an ebook or other material that the library could purchase that would replace the need for students to buy individual textbooks. So for this, as I said, we're looking for the summer round of grants for implementation in the fall. At Drexel, the faculty members would need to be the PIs, the principal investigators for these grants, but the library is able to play a supporting role and be part of the team for the grants. And the library is going to, support these efforts. If you want to find out more about the PA Gold grants, you can either contact me or contact your subject librarian, and we can get you the information that will lead you to the application forms. You would need to treat this like any other grants and get a sign off from your dean and from the Office of Research. Okay, and finally, it's now time for question and answer. And I want to thank you for joining me for this very brief and quick introduction to the world of open educational resources and open textbooks. Contact me or contact your subject librarian with any questions you have, and we're happy to share what information we have available. Thank you very much.